Okay, so you have 3 layers so far. Now let's create a 4th layer, and we're going to call this tree trunk. So on this one, we're going to go back to that rectangular marquee tool, and we're going to draw a long, narrow rectangle like this. And then we're going to use the Add To selection, which is either here or the Shift key. And we're going to draw a few random tree trunks. Notice how when I add, I start in the center of my selection and then I add to it. We can make our tree trunks go various ways. They don't all have to be going one direction. Okay? And we want to select a, whoops, I'm going to make one more tree trunk or one more branch. So now I want to use my color picker and I want to select a brown color. And I am going to come down here and pick from this batch of reds. And you notice there's not actually a brown that is in the color picker, but you know it's somewhere between that red and orange. So you just got to work at finding the best color. So that's where I'm going to put it, right there. I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to use my paint bucket, and I'm going to fill my tree trunk. Okay. Now I deselect, and I'm going to get my Move tool because I want you guys to see why we want to have stuff on separate layers. Let's say I want to move my tree a little bit closer to my house. If I had it on the same layer as the house or as the background, I would not be able to do that. Okay. I could even, if I decide I don't like that roof or I want to see it without it, I can toggle off by using the eyeball so that I can see how that is. Okay. Now, I am going to go back and I'm going to use my lasso tool again. And I am going to make a nice big area to put leaves in. Only this time I am actually going to set my feather at 10 excuse me, 10 pixels. And again, it's going to have some circular areas, and I kind of had a lot of overlap, so I'm going to do that again so that I can give myself a little bit more detail. And okay, I like that one better. Now, obviously we know that I could go to the paint bucket and put in any color. Maybe I think it's fall, and I could fill it. Okay, that's not what I want to do though. So I'm going to, oops, I didn't mean to deselect. So I have to go back in my history to lasso. I'm getting rid of the paint bucket. I have my selection. What I want to use this time, and this is actually not a selection tool, I want to use my paint brush. It's just below my selection tools. Now, don't get mistaken between the brush tool and the history brush. They're two totally different things. You need the brush tool. Okay? Now, with the brush tool, you have lots of options for brushes. You have solid brushes, you have brushes with some fading around the edges, and as you scroll down, you'll notice that you have like grass, and you have a leaf. I'm going to select that leaf. Okay? Now, I could, with that leaf, simply scroll through, and that's what it looks like. However, if I open my brush panel, I want you to notice that we have lots of options here. So first off, this is the brush we chose. The size of it is 74 pixels. You can increase the size. You could decrease the size. Okay? I'm going to increase it a little bit. I also want you to notice that there is spacing. So the spacing allows it to be a little bit more scattered. So if I brush through, notice that they're not all right on top of each other. Okay? And along with that, notice that there's a menu over here on the size. So if I click on Shape Dynamics, notice that we have minimum diameter. And so I can, oh, actually I want to start at the top. The size jitter, if I bring that to about 50, it's going to give me various sizes. Whereas if I had it down at the bottom, it's going to be the same size every time. If it's up at the top, it's going to give me lots of random sizes. The minimum diameter also will change that. The angle, notice some with the leaves facing down, some of them to the side. Roundness, etc. Scattering, same thing. We can scatter it more, scatter it less. Color dynamics. Now, even though I chose this orange color, I still had, I don't remember which one of these colors it was, but either way, it's still fall colors as the background. So by having that color dynamics checked, what happens is that it jitters between the foreground and background colors. So you get different ones in between. It's not just one or the other. Okay? If you increase the hue jitter, you get different colors altogether. Okay? The saturation, the brightness, and the purity, which I'll just leave there in the middle. Okay, so you can brush, and the nice thing is that it brushes only inside the selection that you have. So you don't have to worry about coloring outside the lines. So I'm going to go through there and I'm going to fill a little bit of that. And I'm going to make sure that it has a nice, I don't want it to be solid, but I want it to have a pretty good fill. I can even go back and increase the size and throw in a few larger ones or a few smaller ones if I want. Okay, so I think that is how I'm going to keep it. Okay, so I accidentally forgot to put the leaves on a new layer, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and do a Control D to deselect that, and I'm just going to rename it to tree instead of just tree trunk. Just know then that our tree has to move together. Okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is create a new layer, and this new layer is going to be cloud. And again, with the lasso tool, I'm going to draw much the same way that I did with the leaf area. I'm going to draw a circular wavy shape so I can make clouds. Now I've got this shape made. I'm going to use my eyedropper tool again. I'm going to select the blue in the background. When I go to the color picker though, I don't really want that blue. I want there to be kind of a gray cloud. So I'm going to drag it down into the left a little bit. And once I get that color, I am going to fill it. Now, I want you to notice that, and I'm going to go back in my history panel so you can see real quick. I did not take off my feather. Notice how it still stayed there. So you have the same thing. You have a cloud that has a feathered edge. I actually want it to be feathered, but I forgot to mention that to you before. So I want you to notice that, how that looks when you fill that in. Okay? But I don't like where the cloud is. I want it to be behind the house. Oops. But I need, yeah, that's not what I meant. I need the move tool so that I can move it over a little bit so that it can be seen. There we go. Okay, so at this point we have, like I said, used the majority of our selection tools, and you have a basic scene, created all of selection tools. You can resize these just like we did with shapes. So I could go in and resize my cloud if I wanted it to be a big cloud. Okay, I could go in and I could resize my house as well if I wanted that to be bigger or smaller. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a file save as. Remember to save it to your desktop. Always use your period number, underscore, your last name, underscore, and then the name of the assignment, and this assignment is selections. It's a Photoshop file so that you can go back and edit it later, and then it is needing to be saved when you are completely done as a JPEG file with the same name to be able to put up on your Canvas ePortfolio. I'm just going to keep the same default options for the JPEG there and click OK.